So hi there, my name's Lee Elliott. I really don't need a mic. You'll all be able to hear me probably right from the very back because I'm very loud. So I'm here to talk to you about how to fail at Agile. I am a Agile coach at a company called Fleet Complete. So I'm their global head of Agile, which means that I'm responsible when everything fails. So I like failing. I fail quite frequently and quite often. I do have some notes though, one second. Okay. No, it's a hot book. It's Candide by Voltaire. Anyways, I'm also a magician. I do all kinds of magical events and magic things. And if we finish on time, then maybe I'll do some magic for you. And if we don't, then I'll answer questions. It doesn't matter. It's all good. That's a whiteboard eraser. So I'm just going to go through several things that are examples of failure and talk to you about why they're failures and how you can avoid doing them. So the first thing, I've been in 5, 6, 7 different companies now where they've said, yeah, we're Agile, we stand up. And that's what they do. They just do stand-ups. How many people have done stand-ups? Anyone? Lots. Okay, good. Glad to see people are awake. This is one of those things. So that just doing a stand-up does not mean you're Agile. As a matter of fact, I think that if you need to do stand-ups, that's great. If you've got a large team, but ideally, if you are a small group of people, you shouldn't have to do stand-ups. I should know what everyone's doing at all times anyways, because we're sitting next to each other, we talk frequently, we do all the right things. So doing stand-ups is great. Just doing stand-ups is terrible, especially when you need notes. Why do you need notes at stand-up? If you're doing a stand-up, all you're supposed to be saying is what I did yesterday, what I'm doing today, and what my blockers are. If you need to have notes going into a stand-up to say, here's all the things that I worked on and all the blockers that I've encountered, you're doing it wrong. There's problems. Just come in, talk to everybody, and understand what's happening. One of the other failures that I love seeing at these things is when you get to a stand-up and they just talk to the Scrum Master, and everyone stands. Yesterday I worked on 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm completed it now, and I'm going to pick up the next thing from the backlog. I don't have any blockers. Who cares? Honestly, when I get into those situations, and I come in and I guest Scrum Master for a while and I help teams out, the first thing I do is we say, okay, we're going to talk about this. Let's go around the room and you tell me what you worked on today. And I turn my back to them, because then they get very uncomfortable and they realize, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to be talking to him. You're supposed to be talking to the team. So make sure that you're actually talking to the entire team and not just reading from notes and talking to one person. I love this one. This is one that I found in several different places where the Scrum Master takes down notes and then they just tell everyone where they failed during the last sprint. So during the retrospective, it's like, okay, well, Bob, you really screwed up that last time on that commit, and that was terrible. We need to fix that because, wow, that was just awful. Okay, and then we're going to talk about the next one, and they just read off a list of reasons why we failed during the retrospective. And they got to the end, and okay, and that's good. We're going to fix these items and move on and continue. I'll tell you one of the things, I love this because it also shows that there's 22 different items that they're trying to work on. I did that early on in my career as well. I was the Scrum Master. I thought, oh, you know what? My job is to make this team better. And so when we held our retrospective, I took copious notes and wrote down absolutely everything we were supposed to do. And then at the next retrospective, I was the one that failed because I only got the top 3 completed. Because with your regular job and doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, trying to complete 22 items is just wrong. Pick 3 items at your retro. Just do 3. Pick the top 3 that are going to make you better. Don't try and focus on boiling the ocean, as they say. You don't want to boil the ocean. You want to focus on the specific things that you can do and work on those. I love this too. How many people use Post-it notes when they're doing their retros? How many use online tools? Anyone use any online tools? Not many. A few. I love sitting down and spending half the time of your retrospective, everyone just quietly sitting there and writing on notes. That's terribly, terribly ineffective. The whole point of the retrospective is to make sure that you are identifying where the problems are and then how you're going to fix them. And if everyone's just sitting there quietly writing notes the entire time, you're not doing anything other than writing notes. It's terrible. If you can use an online tool, there's a lot of them. There's Fun Retro. That's a great free tool that you can use. And you just start that as soon as you start your sprint. So you start your sprint, you start the Fun Retro, and then when you come up with an idea, or when you encounter something that's going wrong, you put it in the retro board. And then you spend your entire retrospective looking at the top items that have been voted, because you can vote on these things as well. You vote on them, and then you say, okay, here are the 3 things that we really need to focus on, and how we can fix those things. Otherwise, you're just wasting everyone's time, sitting down and writing notes. Being too busy to have retrospectives. So I'm sort of in trouble with a lot of the Agile community because I will tell you quite honestly, if you are a good, well-performing team, you don't need to do stand-ups. You're sitting, you're talking to everyone, everyone understands what they're doing, fantastic. You don't need to do backlog grooming. If you've got a good team that can do that during the sprint, you don't need a specific ceremony to actually do backlog grooming. You don't need sprint planning. Again, if you're a very efficient team that's just going through things, then you can just go through things and work on them and say, okay, we do 40 points, and these ones are about 40 points, boom, good, we put them in and we go ahead. But one thing that I stress that all teams should be doing, and if they're not doing them, I force them to do it, and I hate forcing people to do things, is the retrospectives. It's the one time where you actually get to look and say, what did we do wrong and what can we do better? And I also add an extra item in the retrospectives because I hate the focus on negativity. I was once part of an organization where I was presenting to the C-levels about how they can make their organization better. And when I was doing this presentation, I was actually stopped by the CEO and he said, how are we still in business? Looking at your presentation, we suck. And we should be just, we should take our stock options and just flee the country. I said, okay, I'm sorry, that's my fault. You hired me to help you become better. You didn't hire me to tell you all the things that you're doing great. If you want me to tell you the things you're doing great, let me spend the next 5 minutes and tell you that. And I did. I went through all of the items that they're really outperforming the industry in. And said, however, those are things that you're already doing well. You want to learn how you can be better. So let's focus on how we can make you a better company. That's the same with retrospectives. If you focus on the negative too much, we're all humans. We're all going to take this and we're going to internalize it that, wow, he said that I sucked, and he tweeted that I sucked, and I suck, and I'm going to focus on that forever. Please don't tweet that I suck. Sorry, I'm doing wrong. So we focus on the negatives. So I always add an extra column in my retrospectives for kudos, because I want us to focus on where things went well too. So it's not what went, good, stop, continue, etc. The kudos is specifically to call out individuals, to say, I want to thank you for doing what you did last week. It really helped me out, and if you hadn't done that, then it would have caused me a lot of problems. Thank you. And a personal thank you to someone means a lot. To Ava, thank you, Ava, for inviting me to speak here. I really appreciate it. Thank you. See? So we want to focus on the positives and not just the negatives. So one of the ways is to be too busy to have retrospectives and to focus too much on negativity during the retrospectives. I love this one. This one is so great. So does anyone do this right now? How many people know that one story point equals 1 day or half a day? Does anyone have that? Oh, good. Thank you. I've been in many organizations where they actually mandate what a story point means. And so if that's a 3-point story, that's going to take 3 days. If it's a 5-point story, it's going to take 5 days. And then I always ask the question, well, what if it's only going to take 4 days? Oh, well then you put in 4 points. I said, no, now you're just get back into project management where you're asking them for a number of days. That's not what it's supposed to be. The whole point of Agile is the bucket system. And you look at, a 1-gallon bucket of water, a 2-gallon bucket of water, a 3-gallon, a 5-gallon, an 8-gallon, and a 13-gallon. And that's what you look at. And if you have 7 gallons of water to carry, you put it in the 8-gallon bucket because that's what fits. It won't fit in the 5s. You don't make it a 5-point story. So you make it as relative size. How many people know how tall the CN Tower is in feet? Anyone? In feet?
Over 800.
Over, so you don't know exactly. But you know it's over 800. How about this building? How many people know how tall this building is? No? Is this building taller or shorter than the CN Tower? You can, if this is a call and response, I'm sorry, I didn't set that up beforehand, you can actually speak back to me at this point. So, is this building taller or shorter than the CN Tower? Thank you. Is this building taller or shorter than an average house? Taller. Taller. So, we've just created 3 buckets. So we know if we need to create a building that's as big as the CN Tower, it's going to take a lot more effort than if we were going to create a building that's this tall, or a real lot more effort than if we were going to create a house. So the whole point is to make sure that it's relative size, and your points should all be relative and not specific. As soon as you start getting into the specifics, that's when you're going to run into trouble where people are going to keep you to the estimates and say, "This, you said it was going to be 4 days and it turned out to be 6 days. Why? What's wrong with you? How could you be off by 2 days?" No, it's relative size. If you want to judge things based on things that you've worked on before, it helps keeping your estimates better. And that's the other part about it, is doing your estimates, and why you're doing estimates and why you're doing metrics in the first place. So the key is, you're doing your metrics, you're doing your estimates for your team. You're not doing it for other people. So at a couple of the last organizations I've been, I do an Agile survey, and I do this survey every 6 months. And it's to judge how the teams are doing and how the organization is performing in an Agile way. So in the survey, I anonymize all the data. So if you want to talk about your team and how your team's doing, that's exactly what this is for. And so the metrics that I use are for the team, so the team can become better. I judge how honest the team is. If you trust your team, I judge if you're doing your stand-ups and your retros, and if you find them valuable, which is the more important question. So if you're doing your stand-ups and you don't find them valuable, why? Let's talk about why you're doing them and why they're not valuable, and we can actually work on that. At one of the places that I worked, they actually were trying to force me to anonymize the data and tell them who said these things and who the best team was and who the worst team was. And I told them no. And it was something that I was willing actually to be fired over. And they said, "You've got to give us this data, it's our data." I said, "No, it's not, it's my data. I ran it. It's my survey. I ran it on my own tool. It's my data." And I wouldn't give it to them. Because organizations sometimes want to take the team that's not performing well and terminate them. Or let's focus on them and let's get them more training. Let's do something special for that team. And let's look at the team that's the best team. And let's focus on them and celebrate them through the organization. But again, even when I talked to the team that was the best team, they had the most green on the chart and it looked really good, they thought they were fantastic. And I told them the story. I said, "Listen, you are like a farmer in a field, plowing his field with oxen. And then you look over and you see that there's a guy in the next field with a John Deere tractor. So you may think you're the best, and you're able to do everything absolutely perfectly, and you are working at top peak efficiency for what you're able to do. My job is to help come in and point out the areas where you can do other things, and where you can expand your knowledge, and where you can become better, and not just focus on the one area." I love going into organizations that just think everything is the top priority. And you say, "Okay, what's the number one thing we need to do?" "Well, you need to focus on quality." "Okay, great, because I was planning on putting out garbage code anyways, thank you. But thanks for telling me to put out quality." "Well, no, but you also have to put out this feature and that feature." "Okay, well, pick one. Which one is your highest priority?" "Well, all 3. I said, "Well, we're not going to get all 3 done. We only have so much time in the day, and we can only get so much work done. You tell me what your top priority is." "All of them." "Okay, then we'll do none of them. How about that?" No, you've got to do one of them." "Okay, well, which one?" And I make them tell me which is their top priority. And it's really hard because they don't want to give up the other things. And so you tell them, "Look, all you're doing is ranking them. You're putting them in a proper order so that we can focus our attentions and our energies on the right thing at the right time. And then we'll focus on the next one, and we'll focus on the next one. If you're trying to get us to multitask, we're going to fail. That's what's happening. A lot of people think they can multitask, but they really can't, and you end up failing. This is one of my favorite, because sometimes you get a brilliant jerk. I hope we don't have any brilliant jerks in the room. I'm not going to ask you to self-identify. And quite honestly, at the last 2 organizations I've been at, we've fired the brilliant jerk, because they are actually bringing the whole organization down. They're bringing their team down, and they're not good for the organization. I went to the one recently and said, what are you working on? Don't worry, I got it. I know you've got it, but what are you working on? Don't you worry about it. I've got it. I need to know what you're working on because we're assigning the work to everyone else, and we want to make sure we're not focused on two people doing the same thing. I'll just overwrite their code. No, then we're wasting their time as well. Don't worry about it. I've got this. So I spent as much time as I possibly could trying to mentor this person, trying to train them, trying to tell them that the team is the important thing and not the individual, and it didn't work. And so we had to terminate. And I've done that in a couple different organizations because even though they're fantastic, and there was no question, both the people that I terminated were brilliant employees, fantastic coders, but they were not good team members. And to be agile, you need to focus on the team and not just the individual. When I first joined the one company I was with, they were on 3-week sprints. And in the middle of the 3-week sprint, they had a review meeting where they would take all of the things out of the sprint that they didn't think they were going to complete, and they would add a whole bunch of other things into the sprint that they thought they should complete. And so it was absolutely useless. The whole sprint was just a joke, and they didn't even realize it until I came in and I went, okay, so what have you actually done other than caused confusion and caused your people not to understand what's going on and where they are at? I actually heard about another organization today that does 4-week sprints. And I've been trying to talk to them about, okay, so why? Why are you doing this? How can we fix this instead of doing, 4-week sprints? In my mind, an ideal agile team should be on 1-week sprints. I've been a part of a couple of different teams that have been able to achieve that. It's really, really hard. And a lot of people think that it's just a waste of time because, well, I've got to do a retrospective every sprint, and I've got to do sprint planning and grooming, and I've got to do all these different activities every sprint, and that just wastes so much time. It doesn't. When it's a 1-week sprint, and get a good team, a high-performing team that just can cycle through things, you just move everything along so much faster. And it may not look good. I mean, honestly, I'll apologize for this. I used to work at Rogers, not for Rogers, at Rogers. It has nothing to do with your cell service. We actually did the Rogers One Number project where you could go online and use your computer as your phone and do all these wonderful fun things. No one used it. It was brilliant, but no one used it. And the very first sprint, we had all the executives come in, and it was the first sprint. All the executives came in to see what we were able to do, and we showed them one button on a screen. And it wasn't even a red screen. I tried to get my guys to put a red screen, and they wouldn't. But it was one button on a screen. And when you clicked it, it didn't really do anything either. And all the executives went, "What the hell is that? What are you doing? Like, you've wasted our time bringing us in here." I said, that was the first sprint. And in the first sprint, all of the work that went into getting that button was connecting with your back-end systems, getting our security profile set up, getting all of these other things done. And the fact that we were able to get that button done is a huge accomplishment. Come back next week and see what we're doing another week. And every week, they went down for the first 3 weeks, and then after the first 3 weeks, all the executives started showing up for these sprint demos because they couldn't believe the amount of work that we were getting done every sprint, and that we actually had a deliverable product after 8 weeks, and they were just stunned. So try to keep your sprints low. I love this other way of failing, and it's CYA. Does anyone know what the CYA term stands for? Just a couple. Wow. Cover your buttocks. Being politically correct. Hi, Mom. They're videotaping this. I'm trying to be nice. So, yeah, if you look at it, and I see this quite often in the places that I go to, where everything is done by email. If I need to ask a question of my product owner, I ask it by email. Sometimes it's Slack. Okay, great, so we use another tool. But the product owner is sitting next to you. Just talk to them. Just find out what's going on. Ask a quick question. Hey, I need to move this over there. Can I move that up there? Yeah, good. Go for it. Done. I don't need to have all of the backing information because it's an open, honest conversation, and I'm not looking at someone to point fingers to when we fail. I've been part of many organizations where that's the case, where we've got into the sprint demo, and I've shown the screen, and look, isn't this a beautiful screen? And the big boss, the head of product, would go, camera? I didn't want a camera. Why would you put a camera in there? Who's responsible for this? And then the product owner would immediately look over at us. So they did it. They did it. for telling you to do it. Okay. Then we just randomly threw a camera app in there for no apparent reason. No. You want to be part of an organization. You want to foster trust. You want to foster the ability to actually get the work done and not just have to cover your butt with all of these emails and paper trails and requirements and settings and technical specs and all the other stuff. That doesn't work. That's just a great way to fail. Okay. And it did fail too. Look at that. Oh, there we go. So just a quick summary on the different ways that you can fail. So again, you want to make sure that you're doing more than just standing up. You want to be delivering effective information to your team. You want to make sure that people are talking to each other and not just, I'll make the deck available if you want the deck later too. You want to make sure that you're delivering the effective information. You don't want to just stand up for the sake of standing up. And you want to keep it interesting. You want to keep it lively. Again, so many times I've been in these things where I'm the first one to speak, and after I'm the first one to speak, I don't care what anyone else says. That's not an effective stand-up at all. You want to make sure everyone is paying attention and that you're doing the stand-up for the right reasons. You shouldn't have a whole list of items to talk about during the stand-up. It should be, here's what I worked on, here's where I'm having problems. If you need a list for all of the things that you completed during the day, then maybe we've got some other issues that you should try and work out. One-person retrospective, you want to make sure the whole team is involved and engaged in the retrospective, and that you know what you're doing it for, and that you're only focusing on the top 3 items that you want to actually resolve for the next time. And then you want to hold your Scrum Master and the team responsible for fixing those items. It's not the Scrum Master's responsibility to actually fix the items that you come up with. You should assign those out to the people on the team during that retrospective. But at the next retrospective, you should bring those 3 items up and say, okay, we were supposed to contact the executive about getting new laptops. Did we get that done? Did we get new laptops? Yes, perfect. So we got new laptops. Fantastic. And you want to make sure you're following up and doing the right things. And you want to make sure that you're using the time in the retrospective appropriately. You don't want to just spend it sitting down, shutting up, and writing. What an entire waste of a retrospective time, and a waste of everyone's time is in the meeting. When you come up with an item, put it into an online tool, write it down immediately, have some way of talking about these things before you actually get into the room where you're just supposed to be resolving them. Make sure you're actually having the retrospectives. As I said, it's the one meeting that's the most important. If it's only half an hour, then make it half an hour. But have a retrospective so that you can improve on what you're doing. If you don't improve on what you're doing, you're just going to continue to fail in the exact same way over and over and over again, and you don't want to do that. Make sure that you're actually talking about what the story points mean. So I've been in several different teams, and the first thing I do is I say, what's a 3-point story? And they say, well, it's about 2 days. No, that's not what I want to hear. So let's go through what we did last sprint, and I want someone to tell me what a 3-point story is in last sprint. And I want you to explain to me why it's a 3-point story, and then I want to go to the next, this sprint, and we're going to see, okay, which of these is about that same amount of work? Which one's a little bit more work, which one's a little bit less work, and then you go from there. So you set a baseline, not just from some random thing. When I asked you about the CN Tower in this building, those weren't random things. We all are in this building. We've all seen the CN Towers probably. So you know how big those are. So that's why you say, let's go to the last sprint, let's take something and use that as our baseline, and you work from there. Using metrics for evil. The reason we're doing metrics is to help the team improve. You're not doing metrics to give the bosses a stick to beat you with. That's not what you want to do. You want them to actually use the metrics for the team so the team can become better. That's why you use metrics. You shouldn't tolerate brilliant jerks. If you've got a brilliant jerk, you identify them, you talk about them, you try and get them involved. It is much better to have someone who's brilliant, who's on your side, than someone who's brilliant and who's working against the rest of the team. If they're working against the rest of the team, get rid of them. It's much better for the morale of the entire team, and the whole team will perform much better once that person is gone, always. Really long sprints. Again, it's not a sprint. You're getting into Waterfall at that point, getting back into that. I've been a project manager for 25 years. Oh God, that's depressing. I have wasted my life, I'm sorry. But in that 25 years, there were only a handful of times when my project plan was correct. And that time was when the project was done. It's the only time you can, accurately predict out what's going to happen is when you've actually already done it. So all those times I did project plans, they were just, here management, this is what it looks like, and yeah, we're going to hit that timeline. And you never do. And then the CYA with the emails and with other messaging things, you don't need to do that. Focus on what it is that is important and talk to those people around you and get those answers. The teams that are on that were 1 week sprint teams, we didn't do anything over email. We were sitting in one same spot, we were sitting at a table like this, and it was just easier to go, hey, Bill, what do you think about this? Does this look good? Yeah, oh, perfect, good, done. Our QAs were able to interact with our product owner, we're able to interact with our devs. You find a bug. Well, I'm going to go into Jira now, I'm going to screw down these bugs, and I'm going to let them know that I found these bugs. Now, what you want to do is you want to say, hey, I found a bug. Does this look like a bug to you? Oh, yeah, it does. Can we fix this? Yeah, that's good. Boom. They make the fix, and they're able to continue testing. It's not a delay of a day or so when I found the bug, and now it's got to go back to a developer, and it's got to finish doing what it was doing, and then jump on this again. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. Fail often. I fail a lot in my life, and I will continue to fail in my life, because when you fail, you're learning, and you're moving forward, and you're growing, as long as you're taking it with the right attitude. I see a couple people smiling at this because they get what's wrong with it. For those of you that are young, and a lot of you, first off, punctuation and grammar, it's not right, but it's John Bon Jovi, not John Bovey. So there's several different fails in this one lovely tattoo. But that's it. So learn from your mistakes, but always be willing to make mistakes and grow and learn from them. So failure is only failure if that's your destination. If you're using that as a step along the way, fantastic. Yeah, there was a person who had 7 personal bankruptcies. They ran for American Congress and Senate 12 times and failed. And then finally they were elected. And that person was Abraham Lincoln. He did a lot of really great things, but he failed many, many, many times on his way to achieving greatness. So be open and able to fail and learn from it. That's it. I'm not saying Trump could do that. So, time for questions. What time do we have? Yes. Back. So that's a great question. So in case you couldn't hear the question, it was, what's the level of privacy that you have within a retro? It really, I'm going to give the consultant answer here and say it depends on the level of trust that you have in the rest of the organization. One of the things that I push for in all organizations is that the retro is held and only by that team. And that the dev manager is not invited, the director is not invited. There is no one outside of the team that's invited to that retro. And the reason is you've got people who are not comfortable speaking up to power. I've never had that problem. I've been fired 3 times. So I speak up to power frequently. My wife doesn't want me to, but I talk to her anyways. But the key is, with retros, you want to keep it all in the team, because there are things that you want to say. What if the dev manager is the problem? And they keep putting more stuff onto our backlog, and we can never get anything done because the dev manager keeps pushing things down at us. So I would recommend that unless your team has developed a great sense of trust and you've got a good organization where people are free to speak their minds and not worry about getting terminated, to keep it within the team. So another question here first.
Yeah, how do you keep institutional knowledge of everything?
So how do you keep institutional knowledge if everything is being done just through discussions? The whole point of being agile is to have working software. So the key is, I'm not saying don't document the code. I'm not saying don't have things in there, but your code should be documented. The discussions about why you got to a certain place, it doesn't matter, because what does that do other than point fingers? So yes, we go back to this lovely screen and I say, we've got a camera app now. And the executives say, well, what the hell? We didn't want a camera app. Who authorized that? What does that do? That's not helping us as an organization. We already have this. We now need to move forward and not look backwards. If you're looking backwards at people to blame, then that's the wrong thing to do. So I'm not saying don't have Confluence pages, don't have things that will help other people as you come forward and understand where you are and what you're doing. But I don't think you need to do a lot of the cover your butt emails that have to say, this is why we got here. So there was a question over there first. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you just have like the Gmail 30-second undo. You send an email, someone replies all, CC, and like, what do you recommend to like
Backpedal from about email.
Yeah.
Don't backpedal. Accept it, and go forward. When I worked at Rogers, I made a mistake, and I was moving from the downtown office to the Brampton office. And in order to make that move, I was part of the gym at the downtown office. And I went onto the website, and there was no easy way to cancel my membership to the gym. So I went into our lovely Outlook, and I opened up a gym distribution list. And I could only see 4 names, because Outlook only populated 4 names. And so I sent an email to that 4 names saying, please cancel me for my gym membership, I'm moving to Brampton. I then walked over to my friend's office and talked to him for about 2 minutes before I heard, Lee, get over here! And I went, what the hell? And I opened up my email and I had 1,000 replies because Outlook had only loaded 4 names, but that was the entire distribution list for all members of the gym.
Bad though.
It was bad.
Just
Oh yeah, it went to everyone because as soon as you get into one of these things, you start getting this isn't the right list. You should be emailing this. Don't do this. Stop replying all. Would you stop replying all? I told you not to reply all, and it became terrible. I own it, and I think you go forward. I think you say, here's a mistake that was made, mea culpa, but you fail fast, you learn, and you repeat, and just keep doing it. Learn and go again. Question here?
Just like you're talking about teams being around the table, right? Were there any alternatives to Slack and email with remote teams?
With remote teams, that's the best way. It depends on what time zone they're in as well. So I've got a couple teams in Romania and Estonia, and I've dealt with teams in India and Vietnam. And quite honestly, that's what you have to do sometimes. So if it's a development question, if it's something like that, then yeah, you have to ask the questions over Slack because you're just wasting time. I think the best way to handle those things, though, is to have someone who is responsible and accountable in that other location that can make some decisions quickly. Otherwise, you're wasting days going back and forth about, did you want this up here or did you want it down there? And then the next day comes by and you're able, oh, I wake up now and I respond back, no, let's have it down there. And then, okay, but in the bottom right or the bottom left? It just becomes a nightmare. So I think that's all the time that I have. I will be around later somewhere, sitting somewhere, doing things. Doing some magic, yes. But I have gone over my time and I want to make sure that we've got enough time for the next speaker as well. So thank you all very much.